Welcome to a 4th of July edition of Instant Analysis. I'm Tim Priester with Tim O'Malley. We are representing Irish Illustrated, of course. And the news today, or actually came yesterday on the 2nd of July, that Justin Scott, the highly touted five-star prospect out of Chicago, has verbally committed to Ohio State. And this is really poor news for Notre Dame. I don't really know exactly where they go from here with interior defensive line recruiting. That really isn't the point. This is a player from a Catholic school in Chicago that Notre Dame felt like they had an excellent chance of getting. They knew it was going to be difficult. Michigan was involved as well, with Ohio State and Miami at one point, but now it's Ohio State over Notre Dame. And I'm not really sure now. We need to tap into Tom Loy at 24/7 Sports and Kevin Sinclair of Irish Illustrated to fully know exactly where they go next with the interior defensive line recruiting. But as of right this moment, it's a long time before signing day. But right now we're not anticipating a change from Justin Scott's decision to attend Ohio State.
No, and maybe the unfortunate thing is the one time you could be wary of a change would be if he had committed to Notre Dame, perhaps in March or something along those lines. I think that's where Notre Dame fans feel, at least right now. It's a big deal because he went to Ohio State. Had it been Ohio State or Michigan, it's a bigger deal to Notre Dame and Notre Dame fans that follow recruiting than Miami or Oregon when someone does that, because that probably means that he was not trending towards Notre Dame no matter what he said. But losing to Ohio State, obviously, off the field is bad because they've had trouble beating them on the field. Part of the reason is Ohio State's defensive linemen are chock full of top 100 and top 125 players, and Notre Dame has a few of those guys. You need more. It's the position you cannot lose. Gosh, I'm bringing up Brandon Davis Swain now, but there's another defensive lineman Notre Dame had a long time ago in this cycle. It's just not a position Notre Dame can lose on and make the college football playoffs very often. Offensive line and defensive line has to come to Notre Dame.
Tim, you just mentioned the kind of athlete, the kind of player that the Ohio States of the world land on the defensive line, Clemson as well. Yeah. Is that why this happened, or is it NIL? Is it Notre Dame administration? I know the strong sentiment coming out of Notre Dame fandom that it's somebody's fault at Notre Dame, whether it's not having the proper facilities, not having the proper leadership, not having an experienced head coach, which is now coming out as well among the accusations being made. Why did this happen beyond what you mentioned about Ohio State and the level of talent that they're used to accumulating on the defensive line?
Yeah, and I want to be clear. I think that's number one, is that Ohio State gets these players because these players see them play in the playoff and they know what's going to happen. When you go to Ohio State, you're probably going to go there. I am one that has totally come around in the last calendar year that NIL can be used for top recruits. And I understand every single slippery slope there is here. You can pay a guy that ends up not being any good at all. You can make mistakes because half of the top players that come to Notre Dame and every other school won't finish at Notre Dame and maybe won't be that good at college football. It is a different world than than drafting into the NFL. But a true NIL opportunity is the name, image, and likeness of a five-star player. Now, I'm not sure Justin Scott would fit the bill of a true NIL the way it was conceived 25 years ago, that he's the guy you want to build your commercials around or things like that, his opportunities. But if you're going to pay guys that are at the program that haven't gotten to the program yet, and we keep dancing around this, like graduate transfers and Sam Hartman, I do not understand why there is not money allocated for five-star recruits anymore, because Hartman's more proven than Justin Scott. Hartman hasn't done a thing for Notre Dame. Are we waiting for him to throw a touchdown against NC State before that first check cashes?
Well, no.
Tim, you're paying him for what he's done in the past. You'd be paying Justin Scott for what it looks like he's going to do in the future.
I understand that. And you said, not allocated for incoming freshmen. I think they've reached the level where it is allocated. But the question is Is that 1.25 million or is that 750,000?
Right. That is the question. That is the question. And I know Marcus Freeman is naturally worried about the dynamic of a locker room where you're paying a 17-year-old coming in more than you're paying Clarence Lewis, who's been there for 4 years. And I'm just using Lewis as an example because I don't think he has a big NIL deal. That is kind of the way the sport works, though. There's going to be strife in the locker room for various reasons. And I think money is a new one. It's an imperfect world Notre Dame's in. I don't know if they're ever going to want to jump into the sweepstakes for a 17-year-old player, but they have gotten into the sweepstakes for graduate transfers. It's true. It's just the way it is. We believe Joe Alt and Benjamin Morrison are the second biggest NIL earners at Notre Dame. Now, those two, I guarantee, were not when they showed up on campus, but they quickly showed that they had to be. Sam Hartman, we believe, is number one. I mean, he was brought in because of what he's done before. There has to be some forward thinking, in my opinion, if you want to sign enough 5 stars to compete for the playoff. I understand if you don't want to do this. That is a Notre Dame administration thing. But there's a weird thing about that is that nobody at Notre Dame or Ohio State or Miami is cutting a check out of the athletic department for any of these players. That's not where it comes from. So I think there's a way that you can marry what Notre Dame has at NIL now and what they need to do to sign some of these players.
Yeah.
And trust me, some are going to stink, right? That's the unfortunate thing. Some of those guys aren't going to be that good.
I do believe that Notre Dame is allocating money towards seniors in high school. I just don't think, I think they're getting out. I think they're getting outbid here. Yes. I really do. And so what's next? Now, we all agreed, I think we were all in agreement that whatever happened with Owen Wafel, whether he was looking, whether he had cold feet about coming to Notre Dame walked away from that situation.
Yes.
Ultimately. I don't think they should have done that. I think we were all, and I'm not pretending to know exactly what happened there.
Right.
Like a lot of people pretend to know exactly what has happened here with Justin Scott. But I don't think that was the right move as it related to still competing for Owen Wafel. Not that he's Justin Scott. I will throw in the fact what I've said all along, and this isn't any kind of justification, but I think Justin Scott is a 5-star prospect and a 4-star player right now for whatever that's worth. It isn't worth anything. I get that. At the time when Sean Sevillano Jr. committed to Notre Dame, it was like, wow, isn't that a bit of a reach now? Well, no, I mean, now you look back and say, wow, glad they got him. I don't think he's a 3 technique per se, probably more of a nose tackle, but he's an interior defensive lineman that I think has a very, very high ceiling, a very high upside. So it's good that they got him, but Owen Wafel is more of a 3 technique guy that I think would have fit there a little bit better. And again, I'm not saying that I know exactly what happened with him. Maybe that was more Owen Wafel driven than Notre Dame, but I think Notre Dame certainly played a role in no longer pursuing him, and in short order, he was scooped up by Michigan.
I think my takeaway from what you're saying here is Justin Scott's a 5-star player that plays like a 4-star. That's why you need 3 Justin Scotts in these cycles.
No,
that's what it comes down to. It really, because when there's 3 of them, and maybe that's excessive, but obviously I don't mean defensive tackles. I mean 3 defensive players that are 5-star players that might be playing like a 4-star that you have to turn into real 5-star players at the college level. I did a quick look. I did top 125 instead of top 100 because it's an arbitrary number anyway. If you're number 95 or number 101 when you're recruiting, when you're ranked by 24/7, everybody else, are you really that much better if you're number 95 or if you're number 106? Notre Dame has 17 top 125 players on its current roster. That includes 1 Zeke Correll from 2019 who remains. In that span, they've lost 6 to graduation or the good way, or the bad way, transfer, or the good way, Michael Mayer leaving early, Kyle Hamilton leaving early. That's just fine. You probably need more than that. 17 on a counting 5 classes. You're going from fifth year seniors to freshmen, because the freshmen, while it's great that they have 4, aren't going to play like that right away. They might not play at all. Alabama
and Georgia are getting that many in a year, Tim.
Yes, they are. And if you want a really rough exercise, Tim, when I was going to look up Javante Jean-Baptiste for a story I was doing, and you usually go to Notre Dame and you look to see where you think to yourself, I can't remember where he was ranked. Where was Adamiola ranked? And he goes to number 128. And he's about the 6th guy going down the screen for Notre Dame. Go to Ohio State and try to find like number 128 when you scroll down on that.
You're going to go down a ways.
You go down quite a ways. Go to Alabama, you go down quite a ways. And that's just what they're fighting for now. Yeah, I don't want to take, I'm not saying Ohio State needs to go throw tons of NIL money at recruits to get them. I'm sure they did, but they've been getting them all the time. I would be more concerned and say, scream NIL, NIL if it was Miami or something along those lines, like the rumors had it.
Yeah. I do want to, I'm going to wrap up here, Tim, with some solace and silver lining for Notre Dame as it relates to defensive tackle. Whatever the reasons are that they didn't get Justin Scott, buy a defensive tackle, buy a grad transfer defensive tackle at the end of next year, and insert a guy that's a 4 to 5 star level player that you insert into the lineup. And now you're not adding an inexperienced Justin Scott who has underperformed a little bit to his profile, but you have an established player. You know, I'm not going to say the guy's name again. I've said too many times, the guy from Western Michigan, and I'm just not going to say it, but find a guy like that next year. Only don't lose out to Florida State, actually land him. Now, do you have to do that in successive years since you miss on Justin Scott? Well, I guess that's what you have to do. But you can compensate for this, probably not right now. I don't see how you compensate for this in this recruiting cycle unless you pull off an unbelievably unexpected upset at this stage,
right,
in the 2024 class. But you can compensate at the end of this season, find an established quality 4 to 5 star defensive tackle, insert him in the starting lineup or in the top rotation next year. The loss of Justin Scott doesn't mean quite as much then.
Yeah, and I think it's partly they will do that. I think they'll compensate doing that. I believe their best players can all come back. Unless Riley Mills has a breakout year, he should be talked into coming back. If Riley Mills has a breakout year, great, go pro. That's what Notre Dame fans should want. That Riley Mills has such a good year, he goes pro. And you're like, well, yeah, he's going pro. That's how good programs work. But there's plenty of guys coming back. You're going to have Rubio, Howard Cross. I don't know if he comes back for a 6th year or not, but he doesn't project immediately to the NFL as rather just a very good college player we're both high on. But once again, you compensate, but it's both. You want to bring in the 4.5 star defensive lineman that's not quite ready to go pro, and you want to bring in the Justin Scotts of the world. And I think that's what you're going against. And nothing's going to stop Alabama from getting that guy next year if they want him.
Yeah. As of now, Justin Scott is headed to Ohio State. This has been Irish Illustrated's Instant Analysis.